See if I can keep y'all from fogging up on me. This is not my favorite season. I do not like cold weather. Today is the day. We're gonna have to go back outside because I can't keep my camera from fogging up. These are the Fronteras strawberry tips that we stuck ourselves. Got these out of Idaho. Really pleased with them. You can see that I don't have 100% success rate. Well, maybe you can see through this fogged up camera. But considering it was my first time ever doing this, and considering that these strawberry tips, we already have the greenhouses and the mist, and we have everything that we need in order to stick our own strawberries and grow our own plants out. It's kind of silly for us to be paying somebody else to do it with all the greenhouse space and everything that we already have. So yeah, I have very little in them compared to buying plugs, and this was my first go at it. And I've still got all those strawberry cutoff plants coming from California. Holly is actually gone to go pick those up right now. She's got to go all the way to basically Wilmington, North Carolina to get them, which is a pretty good hike for us. So it'll be tomorrow before we start sticking those. I'll probably put that on the next video, but I just wanted to show y'all what our finished strawberry plugs were looking like. And we're going to go over here to the field, and I made a new apparatus that we're marking the holes with, and the guys are over there poking these things in now. We are triple rowing these plugs as well as the cutoffs that we're getting. So that's going to get us, like with my spacing that I'm doing, I figure with my row spacing and all, I get about 8,000 feet of plastic per acre, and my beds are about 32 inches wide the way that I've got my bed configured now. And we've always planted strawberries 14 by 14 inches apart and 14 inches between the plants. Well, we've got enough bed space now. I'm not quite able to get to 14 because 28 inches puts them right on the outside of the beds, and I didn't want to be that close to the bed and have strawberries hanging off in the dirt. But I put them about 11 inches between the rows and 14 inches between the plants, and they're still, I mean, it's really good space. It looks about like it always has. I'm gonna load up some more plants here, and we'll go over there, and I'll show y'all what that's looking like. This is a little apparatus that I built a couple days ago out of an old bicycle plus another bicycle rim, and they're not exactly the same size, but they're really close. The handlebars, and I just sure enough cut the bicycle up. That's a sissy bar. There's one part on here that wasn't a bicycle, and that's this old piece of lightweight channel. I went and bought some all thread at the hardware store and some small pipe to space them with, and then I just drilled holes and put I think 2-inch bolts. This is what I ended up using. Use a flexible tape measure to measure around them and get my spacing right. And they are 14 inches apart. And right here is the end result. And then the guys are coming through and plugging these strawberries in. If you go back and watch some of our old strawberry videos, you'll see that we used to plant with a water wheel. A lot of people plant strawberries with a water wheel transplanter. We plant a lot of other things like tomatoes with a water wheel, but for strawberries, I've just found, it's my opinion, that when you're trying to stick plants in the ground that fast, because there's a lot of plants in a hurry. It's not like tomatoes where you got one every 18 inches, so one man has to plant one every 36 inches. even if you got 4 riders, our water wheel does have a setup to where we can ride 4 people at a time. Even with that, you're still planting one so often, trying to get them out and get them stuck in. You just don't get them planted as good as you can do by hand. And how good the strawberries are planted, how good of a job is done right here, has a big impact down the road on yield. So and it's such an expensive crop to grow that I just feel that it's worth the extra time, and it's really not all that much extra time to do it this way. If you're planting with a water wheel, a lot of plants just get dropped in there, and you'll have 10% that'll die out on you just because they didn't get planted properly, and then you'll have another percentage of them that got planted so crooked that half the runners want to go up underneath the plastic, and you're walking through in the middle of the season and you got half a dozen strawberries from each plant laying up under the plastic sticking up that are not marketable. So we've just found this to be a better way, even planting plugs. Obviously we're going to plant our cutoffs by hand because there really is no other way, but this is kind of how we've been doing the plugs for the past several years and have been real happy with it. The spacing, however, is going to be a new thing for us. We are growing these plants that we're planting right here are frontaris. I've never planted frontaris, but it is an open plant habit, and so you should have less bush. So I'm thinking that this spacing is going to work really well. And another thing we did is we bumped up the fertilize to, I can't remember the units of nitrogen exactly, but we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 pounds A1624 to the acre to make up for the extra plants that we've got out here. Another thing I was going to mention is the weed situation. So we lay our strawberry plastic so early because we got to fumigate it, so you need 30 days for the vapam to do its job and get out of the beds, so it's safe for your plants and for your workers. And we sow our cover crop and we try to get it watered in. You see we've already got our XL wobbler sprinkler set up out here. Try to get it watered and get the cover crop off to a good start, but it is inevitable for us. All this land we tend here used to be a cow pasture not very many years ago, so this kind of junk right here is inevitable. And I mean, all grades of weeds in here. Well, what do you do about that? Everybody knows, or at least I hope everybody knows, 2,4-D has no place on a produce farm or dicamba or anything like that. So I wasn't real sure. I considered spraying it all down with Liberty or Roundup and starting over with my cover crop because the weeds had gotten so bad. But ultimately I actually kind of stumbled upon it. I was in the chemical room one day and I saw a jug of AIM. I thought, well, that's the perfect answer right there. If you're not familiar with AIM, it is it's an emulsifiable concentrate. It's real strong stuff. I used to use it some for spraying romittals. It's got a little bit of volatility to it. It is a contact herbicide like Liberty or Gramoxone, so it only kills what it gets on, but it's a little bit more volatile because it's an emulsifiable. And I have had some issues mainly on cucurbits like cantaloupes and pickle cucumbers. It'll speckle the leaves up kind of like you got carried away with gramoxone, but this you can be spraying right on the ground and it just, I think it volatilizes and you'll get a little bit of leaf burn. So I kind of got away from using it for that. But one thing about AIM, it will not kill grass. So, and it's a contact herbicide, so it's pretty safe to spray with as far as not killing other things around here. So I sprayed all this maybe 2 weeks ago with AIM, and you can see, I mean, it's not 100% perfect. Still got some, actually seems like it kind of dinged this barnyard grass up a little bit. It didn't really, don't seem like it hurt the wheat and the rye that I've got sown in the row metals, but it killed this red root pigweed dead as a hammer. So that's something to put in your pocket. And remember, if you ever have a situation where you got real bad broadleafs in your cover crop. But I'm gonna see if I've got some 3-inch valves, because I really would like to be able to get done, as we get done with a section of this field, cut the overhead on and not have my boys working in the rain. But for plug plants, I don't know. I've never planted bare root cutoffs, so I don't know how they're gonna do. But for plug plants, as far as getting them established, running some overhead water on them helps out tremendously. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to do one of my least favorite jobs in the world, but it's a job that needs to be done. So right after we laid this plastic, we put this deer fence up to keep the deer from perforating our brand spickety new plastic. And it works pretty dang good during a normal part of the year when everything's green and growing. But when the deer are more incentivized to go in here, which is coming up, they will go through this. Right now it kind of messes with them because they can't tell how far the fence is apart, and they'll get tangled up in it and they just don't like it. But once everything else dies except for this pretty green ryegrass and these pretty green strawberry plants, it gets really tough to keep a deer out. So about the only way to do it, and do it really well, once they find them strawberry plants, they will mow them if you let them. But if you put power on this, then it does a fantastic job. Electricity on a double polywire fence and a little bit of occasional lead poisoning, and you can keep the deer out of your strawberries. But where we put this up 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, there's grass growing all up through it. Also, I got this aluminum irrigation line down through here, covered in grass, can't even tell where it's at. I want to get this all cleaned up before winter, and I need to get the grass off the fence. So I'm gonna go around and weed eat all this mess and tighten up these wires and get some electricity on this dude. So I got all of our fence line weed eated. This is the next day, and Holly got in late yesterday evening with our cutoffs from Lewis Farm and Nursery down in Wilmington, or Rocky Point. And I was gonna make a separate video about planting those, but I'm just gonna give you a little bonus feature here. So these are our plugs that we started ourselves over there on that side, and then this is what we're working with on the bare root cutoffs. I did figure a way to get my water cut off. There's a little bit of water leaking through, but not enough to hurt anything. I took a couple pieces of angle iron and clamped it on the lay flat because I didn't have a valve. Sometimes you got to work with what you got to work with. So I just got the sprinklers running on what's planted, because I really like to get water overhead on these plants just as quick as possible, because it's hard enough for them to transplant shock with with the water, and if you have them planted transplant stock without water, I think they struggle to get off to a good start. This is what we're working with this year. I'm pretty optimistic and pretty excited about it. Some of these plants have got multiple crowns on them. Some of these bare root plants. My oldest son Malachi's laying the plants out for the guys, and they are going behind him, poking them in. We got our holes marked. We're gonna give it a go on this triple row thing. It's really not putting the plants that much tighter together, and being that these are all open plant habit strawberries, I feel like it's gonna work out good. The only downfalls that I can come up with are airflow for disease prevention and getting your fungicide spray thoroughly into the plant, making good contact, good coverage. Nutrition, which we got that covered. I already talked about that. I bumped my fertilizer up from about 800 to 1,000 pounds to the acre to I'm over 1,200 pounds to the acre. So we added the necessary fertilizer, and I will add more fertilizer when we are running the fertilizer through the drip. And I got the double drip to address the issue of one drip line feeding 3 rows of strawberries and maybe not getting sufficient water to the plants or nutrition when we're running fertilizer. So I think that I've got everything checked off my list that I kind of came up with of problems that I could have doing it this way. They do it this way in Florida and California all the time. I've seen them. I've actually been to farms in Florida that have 4 rows of plants per bed, but their beds are much larger, taller, wider than ours. But with these beds as wide as they are, I feel like we're gonna be able to do well. I've not talked to anybody yet in our part of the world that is doing a triple row, so we kind of blazing a trail here, and we'll see how it goes. Couple things I wanted to talk about. I try to give y'all some value from watching these videos, and not just, well, I hope you ain't watching them for entertainment, because I ain't very entertaining. But a couple last things here before I wrap this thing up about establishing strawberries in the fall. I am a believer in this stuff right here. Last year was the first year that I used it, but this right here will really get transplants off to a running start. Used it on strawberries last year, and I mean, I try to give them enough time to where they can start throwing some fresh root fiber out where they're ready to take the fertilizer. But then I run 2 bags of this stuff to the acre. We put a whole lot of granular fertilizer down, but some of that granular fertilizer is not as readily available as we'd like for it to be. This is all the main, all your macro plus micronutrients, and I mean, this is what it's for, is to be kind of a pop-up fertilizer. Also, Rid Meal Gold. It's going to cost you about $100 an acre. I think it's about $100 a pint. And that's going to protect you from any kind of a root rot, basically any of your soil-borne problems the Rid-A-Mill Gold will prevent. So that's the two things that I try to run through the drip in the fall. I also come back and run Rid-A-Mill in the spring. Again, when you're talking about a crop as expensive as tomatoes or strawberries, low insurance policies is hard to beat. But I appreciate y'all watching. I'm gonna keep these strawberry videos coming. I'm pretty excited to prove all the naysayers wrong. People that have told me that bare root cutoff plants are not gonna work for me here in our area because we get too cold too fast. But I don't know, they may prove me wrong, but we'll see. I'm gonna have update videos on it here as we go along. I'm real interested to see how quick I can get leaves on these plants and get them off and running. Hopefully we're praying for a mild, warm fall so that we can really get them rolling fast. But I will see y'all on the next one. Appreciate you watching.